we go. So a few really cool things, a few pro features. One is that just like we can add a slope analysis and sun exposure analysis to our environment, we can also add a rule to our environment, which is environment wide. So any plant that's being applied to that environment and is being constrained by the fill, if constrained is true, it's going to follow this rule as well. And so in this case, we have a rule restriction gradient is what it's called. So it's a rule, but the rule is a restriction gradient. So you give it two domains. The first domain in this case is the slope. So from 0 to 30, apply a constraint on the height, the current height, from 0 to 60. So if our slope is at 0, the current height can't be any more than 1, right? If our slope is 30%, our height can't be any more than 60. And if I pull this down to 30, you'll see that the change that happens in our plant layout. So you can see how there are shorter plants now overall. The just move that back to 60. The other thing you might notice is that we have a lot of grayed out plants. These plants, maybe they died or what happened. But we're basically, I'll skip ahead really quickly to show you this. We're using what's called a bloom calendar component here. And so the one thing the bloom calendar does is it gets all the months and it visualizes when the bloom is for that particular species. But it also allows you to animate what it looks like at different times of the year. So that's in May. This is in, we're going back in time, April, March, February is pretty grim. And we can go up to what does it look like in August, September, October. Yeah, so that's really cool. You can visualize the bloom over time. It's really fun. And let me just go back. One other thing you might notice is that we are filling plants in a much more orderly way. This is also probably a much more pragmatic way to plant a bunch of plants and to sort of specify it with the contractor, say like, oh, here's the grid, lay out a grid, and then we're going to tell you where to place the different plants. And so this is a pro feature, and it's called fill area with pattern constrained. And this allows you to create a pattern, which we're doing through using Paving Kit. So we actually, let me just show you. Sorry for zooming around here. So we create a set of paving using, it's like herringbone or something. And we could also do a different pattern if we wanted, but this was just the default. And then we get the centers of those pavers. And those end up being, let me just do points so you can see them. Those end up being a set of points that we're going to, lay the plants out based on that. And so what it does is it tries each point and it tries to put the right plant into that place. And it tries, in this case, 10 times for each point. If it finds one, it moves on. But if it doesn't find one, what we end up with is a set of points. You can see in the green here, all of the points that aren't, I'll just flash them on and off a little bit so you can see them. Those are points that didn't find a species. So in this case, you could use those remaining points or not filled points as a pattern for another pattern fill. And you could have like maybe the one species or a mix of species that are generalists. And you could turn off the constraints, right? So this is just sort of where you're going to fill in where things aren't working. And if you end up with a lot of those, maybe I need some other plants that fit into these other niches in my plant list or in my plant database. The other cool thing we can do is change the age of the site. So this is kind of going up to 4 years, 5 years. Since these are all perennials, most of these are pretty mature. After a few years. So I'll just go backwards actually in time. 3 years, 2 years. You can start now. We shrink. There we go. So 1 year, 2 year, and this set age component, we actually just updated this last night. It's much more performant as of last night. And so we can look at the plants during the year. We can look at them over their, the scale of them over their lifespan. Their scale is adjusted according to both their size and it's actually pulling from a growth rate value here. So if it doesn't get one, it's going to just automatically apply a moderate growth rate. But if it's slow, it's going to, be over a longer period of time that it's going to grow from, from 0 to its maximum maturity. And then there's also, which doesn't appear here, there's a rapid, if you had rapid, that would be a much faster growing plant as well. So those are the pro components. Oh, the one last thing is plant block info. And this is kind of like get plant info, but it's, first of all, it's way faster. And second of all, it pulls things apart in a different way so that you could more easily generate blocks. You could actually plug this into, like, say, like an elephant block component, and you can actually spit blocks out into your file. And there are examples of that on our website within our tutorials and stuff, which we can point to. We were trying not to use some of these other components from these other plugins just to make things simple for today. But this is great because what it does is it gives you a bunch of, if you know Grasshopper, it gives you one item per branch. So like either a circle or a sphere or a color. And then within each branch here for locations, it gives you the whole list of where those plants are located. So you can then orient whatever geometry you want to that location, or you can build a block using those inputs, and then you can, place a bunch of blocks according to these locations. Pretty cool. It allows you to bring this stuff into CAD more easily, to export it to Lumion or whatever. We're constantly doing this with our work. We generate a bunch of blocks, and then we send those over one layer at a time to Lumion as DAE files. And I think, and do a mass replace. But I think Enscape does this as well, and I think Twinmotion probably has a very similar workflow as well. And then the other thing, which is interesting about PlantKit, is you could just not use plants. You could, like, this could be a means of placing something else entirely. Right? Like you could have all your own parameters and just use all the same functionality to place something different in a design. So this could be like land use, or this could be, whatever. We haven't experimented with that. When I was doing the agent-based planting design, I was experimenting with using that same kind of tools for like site layout and land use planning and things like that. But I think that these tools could also serve those similar kinds of needs. You've got proximity, you've got, you can import different things. There's also an image analysis layer, which we didn't show. So you could import any kind of image to be some sort of a filter for, okay, these things go here, these don't, these go here. And that could work great for plants or for whatever else.